back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
I'm Zach Spencer. This is The Law Show, CL 650. Today we're talking about protecting yourself against a lawsuit or loss around motor vehicles. Joe Murphy, QC lawyer at Murphy Batista, obviously a partner there with Jeff Neuenberg, also from the same firm, talking about what you should be looking for around your vehicle to protect yourself against a lawsuit or loss. One other quick question for you. For example, my wife has a car that she drives most of the time, but on the weekends, because I'm a car guy, I like to drive. So, as you said, it's implied that your spouse is covered, even though I'm not the primary driver, and I might drive it on Saturday and Sunday.
Yes, and that's why the standard ICBC policy summary says, and no one in the household who's going to be driving has less than 10 years experience, right? Because they want to know if there's a new driver in the household driving even a bit, then the premium is higher.
Right. Okay, so we want to get into what you should be looking for in terms of coverage for your vehicle. So we'll talk about liability insurance policy, and also what kind of insurance you'd be looking at when you're going into an auto plan. And your advice, Joe, is that the ICBC does provide excellent coverage. You've stated that already.
Yes.
So you think that's the way to go. It's simple. It's one entity, because you do have to, if you go with another insurer, buy your basic coverage from ICBC, then go to a third, or sort of second party, not a third party. But
yeah, for some people, Zach, it's cheaper to have ICBC for the basic coverage and then go to one of the private insurers for what's called the excess coverage.
Right.
The policies are not quite the same. They're very, very similar, but they're not quite the same. If there's a claim, it's ICBC that sort of manages the claim, even though they just have the first layer of insurance. Some claims, like let's say I have a collision claim, so if my car's damaged, it gets fixed and I pay my deductible. That could be handled exclusively as the excess insurer, by the excess insurer. Because ICBC has nothing to do with fixing the car. Well, comprehensive claims are the same. That's optional insurance.
I'll give you one example, just as an aside. We were in Penticton in the summertime, enjoying the lake, and a bunch of kids came in and slashed the tires of 50 cars in the parkade there. And so ours, fortunately, was not impacted by that. But our friends had their excess coverage by another company. Had it been ICBC, there would have been an adjuster in Penticton who would have driven by and looked at the tire and said, yeah, we'll pay to get your car flatbedded to Vancouver. It was a special tire it needed, an odd size BMW run flat tire. So, that's another thing about ICBC. If you're in the middle of, they couldn't get an adjuster there. They had to get a tire expert to come and look at it to show that it was slashed, show pictures. But the great thing about ICBC is they have centers all throughout the province that you can access if something happens to you.
True. And that's a convenience and a benefit of ICBC over the private insurers. So there can be, for some drivers, some savings by breaking the coverage up between ICBC for the basic and the private insurer for the excess, but there's also disadvantages of doing that. And the problem is when you buy the insurance, you don't know what your year holds for you, so you don't have the crystal ball that tells you which is the better route to go.
So what is the basic coverage that ICBC enforces you to have in the province?
ICBC provides $200,000 in third-party liability coverage. Even though the average car is insured for about $1.5 million, the basic minimum is $200,000. They provide you with $1 million in the underinsured motorist protection coverage. They provide you with what's called Part 7 benefits. So if someone gets hurt in the car or a pedestrian, there's some wage benefits and there's some medical and rehab benefits. If someone's killed, there's some death benefits. So that's pretty well the basic package.
But you advise to obviously exceed that.
Liability $5 million. There may be cars where you say it's not worth my while to buy collision coverage. Mm-hmm. An older car, you may look at a car and say, well, is it worth my while to buy comprehensive coverage? Fire and theft and vandalism, or I'm going to buy it, but I'm going to have a very large deductible,
yeah.
so that it's only if something really bad happens that I'll be making a claim, and I'll be paying the first $300, $500, $1,000. It's a decision, but liability, everybody should have the $5 million, especially if you're going to be driving in the United States.
So $5 million is the maximum you can buy here in BC through ICBC?
Yes.
Would you suggest they raise that in the years to come, or
well,
do you think that's good?
It's been at that level for many years, and things become more expensive. So that should be adjusted. When it's going to happen, I don't know. For ICBC, they just figure out their cost of offering it, let's say $6 million. So what's the chance that there's going to be a claim that's going to go beyond 5? How often is that going to happen? And they cost it out. They have actuaries that can figure it out, and they pass it on as a premium. And I personally think it would be good to have the choice of doing that. And I know the cost would be very modest. If I'm buying $6 million for my car versus 5, I expect that the additional cost would be under $100 for the year. It would be nice to have the choice, but ICBC set that maximum at $5 million.
All right. So, what is UMP, and how can you get extra UMP from ICBC, or what does that mean?
Yeah. So it's underinsured motorist protection. So, if there's not enough insurance on the policy, you can.
That's the person that's
responsible for or at fault for the accident. Then you can use that policy, and there's an underwriting or a basic amount of coverage that everybody has in the province if they insure their vehicles. But you can also get excess, and it's quite affordable, and it's a good idea to purchase it.
Zach, the nice thing about the coverage is that it covers you anywhere in North America. So particularly if you're going to the States, and there's a risk of an accident there, whether you're in your car or whether you're a pedestrian, this coverage kicks in and pays or tops up the amount you can recover. In the United States, you can commonly find cars that have $50,000 worth of insurance. So if you get badly hurt, or no insurance. So that coverage is even more important, I think, when you're operating the vehicle or you're going to be in the States. You could be a pedestrian, run over on a holiday with the car's at home. But that covers you. So it's anywhere in North America.
And does it cover just you as the policyholder or other people in the family?
Covers you and your family.
So that's good. That's cheap insurance.
It's fabulous coverage.
And you're saying that is covered initially under your basic policy?
The basic policy has $1 million which means ICBC guarantees that the total amount of all the insurance monies available to pay the claim is going to be $1 million. And for an extra $25 a year, they'll increase that from $1 million to $2 million. So when you look at, if it's covering your whole family, let's say a family of 4, it's about $6 each per year.
And it doesn't. And the other thing about insurance when you're traveling in the United States is that a lot of times your age affects, your insurance coverage down there. And what you're saying, this doesn't matter what age you are, you're going to get covered for $25. That's cheap insurance.
Oh, it's fabulous insurance. And again, it's only if something bad happens to you or your family members when you would need to rely on it. But when something bad does happen, it's so essential to have the funds available.
Now, if we have 3 cars insured in the family, or do we have 3 times the coverage? Or is it just one policy?
ICBC says that if you're in a car and you're injured, the excess needs to be on that car. It used to be that you bought the policy for the family separate from any vehicles. But now it seems to say that if you're in the car and you're injured, you need excess on that car to cover it. If you're a pedestrian, you don't.
Okay. All right. Good to know. All right. When we come back, we're going to get into a whole bunch of other parts of what can go wrong. The other thing, Joe, I want to talk about after the break is I get in an accident and there's been an injury. What should I do? Where should I start? What shouldn't I do? All those sorts of things. When we come back, we're talking about preventing yourself from a lawsuit or loss with Joe Murphy and Jeff Neuenberg from Murphy Batista on The Law Show next on CL 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is The Law Show on CL 650.